Hello and welcome to your second lesson for GCSE Business Studies. As you can see, the title for today is Stakeholders. Like before, go through, make some notes, and then if you've got any questions, write them down and we can sort them out at the beginning of Thursday's lesson. Okay, so by the end of this presentation you should be able to identify the key stakeholder groups that a business has to deal with, and you should be able to discuss why these groups may be in conflict with each other. So, like before, let's start with a definition. And a stakeholder is a group or an individual with an interest in the business and what it does. It's as simple as that. The stakeholder groups are defined in the next few slides, but ultimately all we're worried about is somebody, whether they work for them, whether they don't, who has an interest in the business. And you'll see from all the different stakeholder groups how they link together. So, this is going to take a while. Let's start with a summary of them all. You can see the stakeholders in the middle, and all of those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 groups around the outside are the groups you have to be able to talk about in your exams. So let's start with the first two. Workers. They're going to be interested in pay, job security, and to a certain extent social interaction, the groups that they like to work in. So anything that is going to affect those three things will mean that the workers may become unhappy or happier depending on the decisions that have to be taken. Managers. While technically both of these groups are employees, we have to split them up because while they're both concerned about pay and they're both concerned about job security, and your managers may have social groups as well, their manager's job is very different to the workers. They're also concerned about the long-term future of the firm and having to make decisions about that long-term future. And those decisions may affect how the workers feel, so it's important that we separate those out. Okay, next we've got the owners. Of course, the owners are after the profits of the firm. That's why they invested their money. And the owners may or may not be the management of the firm. If we're talking about large businesses, your Tesco's, your Marks and Spencer's and everything like that, the owners are not the managers of the business. They're shareholders, and they have nothing to do with the day-to-day running of the business. Where in a much smaller business, they may also be the managers, and that links in with the previous slide. Customers. We're all customers. That should be a nice easy one for you to talk about. All we are concerned about with our shops are low prices, good service and having a choice of goods. And the minute those things start to change, we get unhappy. So if prices go up or service becomes bad or where there's a restriction in the choice of goods, we are not happy. And businesses have to try and react to that. Okay. Suppliers. Our suppliers are interested in us because we are, as a business, their customer. So they want to know that we can pay the bills and that we are going to be around for a long time, because if we're around buying goods from them, they're making money. So it's around that kind of relationship. The government. Of course, the government may not have a direct hand in how we run the business, but they want us to pay our taxes, they want us to obey the law, and they want us to help the economy grow. So their interest is there, and they will do a number of things to try and encourage us to grow, to make sure that we're paying the right taxes, and obviously to keep us within the law. Right. Now we've got one that often causes trouble with students. It's the local community, because the local community refers to everyone who lives in the same area as that business. They may not use that business, they may not work in that business, but they're affected by it. If you take the example of a factory that opens up near the school, okay, when that factory opens up, there will be increased transport, there'll be lorries, there might be pollution coming out into the environment, and your parents would be concerned about your safety on the roads, about your health because of the pollution, and they might not work with this business at all. So the business has a duty to look after the people in the local community as much as it does for its staff and its suppliers and so on. Now you might think, why have we got competitors in here? Because you don't really want to divulge information to competitors, and that's true. But your competitors will still be able to find out what you're doing. They can walk into your shop. You don't know who they are. They can check your prices and everything like that. They'll respond to the advertising you do by doing similar advertising. They'll want to know if your sales are similar to theirs and if you've got similar products to theirs, and they may bring out similar products to compete more effectively with you. So they're interested in what you're doing because you're potentially taking business away from them. And then I suppose pressure groups, first of all we need to define what a pressure group is, and a pressure group is a group that come together to put pressure, funnily enough, on an organisation or an MP to try and encourage them to do something. Most of the pressure groups you'd be familiar with are environmental ones, but it may also be about treating workers fairly. And yes, they're outside the business, they might not be in the local community, but they want to ensure that what the business is doing is fair to whatever, fair to their suppliers with things like fair trade, fair to the environment with things like Greenpeace, fair to their workers, and that's where trade unions would come in. Okay, so they are your stakeholder groups. What we have to then concern ourselves with, a bit like we did with objectives, is that different stakeholders will have different needs and wants and desires. So that will cause conflict. The workers will want more money, but the managers will want to have less wage bill. The owners will want lots of profit, but the customers will want lower prices. So there's always going to be a conflict between different stakeholders. And this becomes even more complex the more stakeholder groups you belong to. So as I've put there, they can belong to more than one stakeholder group, meaning it's hard to satisfy people all of the time. If we take the example of someone who lives in the local community but also works at the firm and has shares in the business, what do they want that firm to do? Do they, as owners of the business with shares, want lots of profits? As a worker, do they want job security? Or as someone who lives in the local community, do they want no expansion, no pollution, etc.? And a good way to illustrate this is using a lovely Venn diagram. So here I've got my three stakeholder groups, the community, the workers and the owners, and you can see that they all cross over. And we've got where the local community and the owners cross over, we've got an owner who lives in the local community. We've then got where the local community and the workers cross over, we've got workers who live in the local community. And where the workers and the owners cross over, we've got a group of people who are workers who are also owners of the business. And if that's not hard enough, right in the middle, all three of those cross over. And that last arrow that's come up are workers who own part of the business but also live in the local community. Now, how on earth does the business manage to try and keep those three interests balanced? And that's what we'll need to talk about, and that's what the activities in the lesson will be about. And now for this one, I can see as I'm recording it's now coming up to 9 minutes, so it's shorter than the last one. That is it. So like before, you need to go back over this video, make sure you have got down the key definitions. You choose what you need to write down, but I'd make sure that you've at least got a definition of what a stakeholder is. And then I am going to upload this video and the associated quiz to go with it. So you can then go on to Zondel and complete the stakeholders quiz. As you can see, I forgot to change the word objectives. So yes, make sure you do the stakeholders quiz. And that's it. I will see you next lesson, and we can look at what the influence of stakeholders is with a few activities. Thank you for listening.